25 years ago, Nintendo tapped into something that allowed them to release two of the most successful sequels ever released on the same console, and both within only 20 months of their predecessor releasing. Now, no other developer, not even really Nintendo, has been able to see such overwhelming success in both critical acclaim and the historical impact of a sequel. In fact, sequels nowadays have such a bad reputation that if a sequel releases or is announced, it's usually cause for people to roll their eyes and prepare for them to be ripped off by a large company that only knows how to push one button to get a sale. And this leads into the question that we're going to be trying to answer today. How did Nintendo manage to do it the first time 25 years ago, and then nobody's been able to really replicate the formula since then? Black Ops 6 released only a few days ago, and while sales are always up for these games, it certainly raises the question, what am I really getting when I purchase this game? This is the 6th of a series that has been going on for a pretty long time. Not a whole lot of innovation, but certainly still in the public limelight as something that is worth buying. I mean, sales, like I said, are always up for games like Call of Duty and Black Ops, all of these. You might say that there's a new zombie mode, there's new stories, there's new multiplayer servers, better graphics. These are all among some of the things that you could claim prop up a reasonable justification for dropping another $60 on what's essentially the same game. But in reality, the machine only works if the entire player base moves to the newest one consistently and completely abandons the previous one. If a significant portion of the player base stays behind on the previous installment, regardless of how good or bad the newest one is, then that newer game will fail, and the executives making these decisions will be found with their pants down. In 2001, Super Smash Bros. Melee was released. Though it was released on one of the worst performing consoles of the day, Melee still outperforms its successors in terms of tournament winnings, player turnout, and just plain hype.
Mango's got all the pressure right now, all the pain!
Yeah,
Mango's
playing hot. Mango's playing hot, despite that, FT
regularly. Melee is the better game, and it managed to hang on while newer installments were released. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare 1 and 2 released, and are considered by a lot of people better games. Black Ops released, and while they got the critical acclaim that I think they deserved, they didn't quite stand up to the juggernauts of Modern Warfare 1 and Modern Warfare 2. And yet, Black Ops managed to slay the first two installments. This will likely cause the astute among you to ask the question, is this just a particular subset of gamers that won't let their childhood game go, or is it something about the successors that makes a difference? I truly don't have an answer for this. I wish I did. I think it's a little bit of both, honestly. I think that the Melee player base is just people who genuinely don't know how to let things go, even past its time. However, I'm still very happy that I live in a world where Melee still has a huge following. Even though games like FIFA and Call of Duty largely get their recurring player base to come back because of the multiplayer aspect, there still is a significant part of the community that loves the single-player aspect of these games. Now, if you just analyze these aspects of these games, it's clear that, at least Activision, they don't really know how to properly create and release a sequel. Now, that's kind of ignoring the fact that these are decent enough games standalone. I just don't think that they're good sequels in every sense of the word. They don't follow up on the last one at all. The release of Black Ops 6 did not inspire this video. However, the re-release of one of my favorite childhood sequels ever did. Banjoo-Tooie is finally available to Switch Online members, and this game really, it made me think about just how incredible it was for a developer to release not just Banjo-Kazooie, but also Banjo-Tooie on the same console only 29 months after they released Banjo-Kazooie. Logistically, this is still an incredibly amazing feat. They were able to push something out that really had a lot of critical acclaim, and then not only meet the expectations, but surpass them in a lot of ways that really hasn't been seen in future sequel games. It hasn't really been repeated in a lot of other ways. Banjo-Kazooie is just such a fun game. I mean, the amount of heart that goes into creating a game like this, I mean, you have to really know and love the game in order to be able to follow up on a game like this. You know what I mean? It's easy to tell when a developer really knows the medium that he's working with, right? It's really easy to tell when people are really into it, they're really passionate about it, and they really know what these characters are supposed to do. It's also really easy to tell when that's not the case. And I think more often than not lately, it's been the case that people have not been as passionate about the IPs that they've been developing. This isn't the case, like I said, for Banjo-Tooie. They really understood Banjo-Kazooie on a fundamental level. They knew what made it fun, and they just polished everything in a very serious way. I mean, the movement's more smooth, right? The abilities that you can get are just way... it's just the natural progression of our bear and bird hero. It makes sense. It doesn't feel like somebody else took the reins here. It really does feel like it's the same team working with the same character. It's just the next chapter. It really felt like the right way to do a sequel. Now, all of this would have been just as impressive, I think, on the next generation of a console and kind of, years after the first one released. However, that's not what happened, right? Banjo-Tooie was released 29 months after Banjo-Kazooie came out, and it came out on the same console. One of the reasons why Banjo-Tooie was able to be released so quickly as it was because they reused almost all of the same assets. They added a few extra animations that really added a lot of life to Banjo in particular. Like his backpack moves a little bit more smoothly when he's running around. You can see it's kind of loose and it bounces kind of opposite the way that he's stepping. As well as when he's underwater and the way that Kazooie moves, you can see that there's a little bit more space in between his backpack. These are just small details, but it really does add a lot of just life, I guess, is the best way to put it. Banjo seems more alive, and you can kind of see it with these different animations that they put. They also added, like I said, a lot of different moves that just properly progress the character in the right way. And these are all kind of moves that you wish, after playing Banjo-Tooie, you wish that they were in Banjo-Kazooie, because they just work. The grip grab, it just works. Why isn't this not in Banjo-Kazooie, right? It feels like it should be. Now, interestingly, newer games kind of completely redo all of their assets and as a way to update the graphics of the game. This creates a really good marketing and selling point, but they don't adapt the main character's abilities in the same way that Banjo-Kazooie develops from game to game. Now, this inversion of the development process is one of the main reasons that games take so long nowadays to develop. I'm certainly of the camp, graphics don't really matter as long as the game story is good. I know I'm probably in the minority here, but at a fundamental level, I don't think that games would be successful categorically without games that prioritize the story or mechanics over graphics. Like, we're all standing on the shoulders of giants here, and any game that just focuses on graphics, it's just kind of, it's a gimmick, right? That said, doing it this way, putting graphics over the mechanics and the way that the game plays, it certainly makes the development process just that much more painful and long. Nintendo still has the art of the sequel down. This is exemplified perfectly in Tears of the Kingdom, a game that recently broke into the top 3 of my favorite games of all time. Interestingly, Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild followed nearly all of the same rules that Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie did. Tears of the Kingdom, they found a darker tone, they added insane new abilities, and created one of the most interesting and engaging stories of any Zelda game, a series that's already known for its incredible storytelling. You know what they didn't fix or they didn't change? They didn't change the way that the game played graphically. It's the same game, it's the same engine, and nobody wants it to be better than it is. It's beautiful, and everybody loves it for what it is. Nintendo cracked the code here. They focused on the right thing. They focused on developing Link as a character. They focused on developing the story and the world more than building something that would be flashy and get people's attention and maybe convince somebody to buy for a reason that isn't just the game itself. Now, on top of that, one of the most unique things that Nintendo does after releasing Tears of the Kingdom is something that no other developer will ever do. They will outright refuse to do this. They stopped. Nintendo saw Tears of the Kingdom, they saw Breath of the Wild, they asked themselves, is this story finished? They said yes, and then they didn't make any more. And to our knowledge to this day, they are not going to build another Legend of Zelda story in that Hyrule. They're moving on. No other developer would be able to resist the temptation of the amount of sales that they could get when they looked at the numbers that Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom did. And selfishly, I would like a third installment in this Hyrule. I really do, because this is, like I said, it's one of my favorite games ever. However, if they did go for that third installment, it wouldn't make it what it is, right? So Nintendo does something very interesting when they handle their IPs. They don't seem to look at what makes money when they release a game. I'm sure that they're asking that question, but beyond that, they ask themselves, is this a good game for us to release? And is there a story still to be told here? When the answer to one of these questions is no, they don't create the game. Now, like I said, this is a little frustrating because selfishly, I would love it if they did make a new game, but I'm glad that Nintendo stuck to their ideals. They did what they thought was right, and therefore they're able to continue to keep a lot of people's trusts and to continue to make good games because they're focused on making good games, not on, well, something else. I sincerely doubt that any companies will figure this out. It feels like everything in our society today is currently being run by bean counters that are sincerely disconnected from the product that they're responsible for. This doesn't just go for the games industry, this goes for every industry that I feel like I'm even remotely a part of. I don't know if I'll ever be given the chance to influence this in a serious way, but I have hope. There are people in the space like Ludwig, Atrioc, Pirate Software, Donkey, and more who seem like they really understand what I'm talking about here and are actually trying to bring passion back into the space. I'd love to join them one day. If you like this video, I have one more that you might like about Pokemon and gambling. Watch it and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next Sunday.